Ori and the Will of the Wisps. This is on Xbox One X. It is enhanced for 4K resolution with HDR support, and it is beautiful. Microsoft sent this over to check out, and this is all footage from the first hour. I was having some DVR issues past that. I wanted to make sure that all review footage was actually Xbox One X enhanced. So this is a really lovely and beautiful game. This is a sequel to the first Ori title, but you don't necessarily have to play that one in order to check this one out. It is a hardcore, intense platformer title with some interesting minor RPG elements included that have actually been expanded upon greatly in this one, and we'll kind of show those off in a little bit. So in this next story, we have our little pal here. He's taking care of an owlet, and with his group of buddies, and then eventually, things are going good, but then through a series of bad situations, they end up on this new landmass, and you have to deal with these new threats and another decaying landscape as you try to purify and save the local people. So in the game, you'll fight giant monsters, fend off dangerous situations, discover many unique areas, solve light puzzles. It's not really too much of a puzzle title, but it is a really creative game in terms of having you move around this massive map as you try to open new areas, then backtrack, and then go forward. It really does have some great level design to it. The hand-drawn artwork is simply stunning. The enemies are unique, varied. It is familiar, yet completely advanced over the initial game. There are tons of improvements to the overall design, and it really is a beautiful sequel. Now, that being said, review-wise, there were a lot of kind of performance issues, which were a bit disappointing. The day one patch and patches past that are supposed to fix those problems. On PC, Windows 10 PC, it is running beautifully well there, so I expect the One X version to also be very polished with the full update that is sent to arrive. Now, I personally wasn't actually able to finish the game due to a glitch, so I'm either going to have to replay it, or I'm actually talking with the developers in order to do that, but I thought that it was good for transparency to let people know about that. So, in the game, they have spirit shards, which are a new addition where you actually get to kind of pick your abilities. They give you new options to kind of buy things. You can also improve this village area, and then the locals kind of give you new extra things, kind of like a currency that you're earning as you're playing. And then there's like a tease in the map. The map is massive. And to go back on the issue I was having, I was able to play like 99% of the game, but there was one issue kind of blocking me from doing just the last little bit of it. So I more than enough played it. I think I have 10 hours or so at the game at this current point. Even doing side missions, which I don't normally do. And that's a neat thing about this, is there's little extra quests you can do for finding things. There are little speedrun moments, and yeah, it's really quite interesting. So there are a couple difficulty options too that are present, but this was all done on normal. And yeah, it's not as... I didn't find it as hardcore as the first game, but I did find the areas that were harder in this one to be way harder than they were in the first game. If you're comparing difficulty and everything like that, it is definitely a game that will challenge you, and at the same time kind of leave you brokenhearted, because it's got such a beautiful narrative that's delivered in little droplets throughout your tale. This is a really interesting and well done game, generally from a technical standpoint. The platforming is beautifully well done. I love that they kind of give you a number of the key abilities that you had last time right off the bat, and then introduce a bunch of new ones that you can use. Swimming's a bigger part of this, and there's all these new little cool things like the blue moss that you can kind of climb on. And there's more of a focus on mechanical aspects, such as shooting things in order to move platforms, or swinging off of things. They have really interesting boss battles. The sense of scale in the world is absolutely stunning. It's really quite neat how there's so many collectibles and hidden secrets that you can kind of find if you look around on the maps. And again, with the elements of a slight RPG aspect, you are able to, also improve upon your skills that you buy so that you can become more resilient. That you also find extra little green orbs of health so that you can actually, be able to take fight damage and be able to keep going onwards. In the first game, hilariously, I ended up doing the whole thing with like 3 or 4 health circles, so it was really hardcore for me to do that one. But this one, it just... it seems a lot more streamlined. The experience really is very well done, and it's a breathtaking game. And there's just those minor elements of performance and that glitch that I faced there that really kind of hold it back from perfection. I'd have to say this really is an absolutely stunning, game. Such a really well done experience. It takes the elements that made the first one so compelling, and it builds upon them in new and interesting ways. The artwork is great. Everything feels very lively, from the characters you meet to the elements that you interact with. And you can see that as Ori graces and touches every aspect of like the environment. The subtle movements, the way that it kind of reacts to what this character is doing. It really is remarkable, and it's such a beautiful game. Now, if there was an example that I would say, if someone was to ask me, when you look at a video game, what do you consider art? And the opening segment of this game is something that I would show people. Even regular gameplay like this is a prime example. Just like the dedication and the detail into every little element of the environment that creates such a perfect atmosphere is amazing. And the fact that everything feels like a natural part of that environment. Everything feels real here. The enemies, the characters, they don't stick out. They naturally blend into this gorgeous world. And then the atmosphere is only propelled further with a stunning soundtrack in the background. The music is absolutely beautiful in this, and it helps set the mood so well. So while it is something that will definitely test your frustrations to a bit in terms of difficulty, it's certainly a worthwhile time, and it's a kind of a world that you can really just get lost in as you're moving around and gaining more skills, being able to open up new areas, travel to new places, take on new challenges. It's really quite exciting, and it's just such a really well, aside from the performance things that are supposed to be cleaned up, technically perfect experience. It's got that right balance of frustration mixed with, wow, I really feel accomplished by beating that area, discovering the next part of the story. And I love the setup of the Wisps, where it's kind of like you're basically doing this main narrative, and then it branches open and kind of gives a selection of choice, and it completely varies the world. So each area is like a different bit of a biome. But in the main section, that biome does feel kind of familiar and similar. And then when the game does open up, you get these wildly different areas. There's the Luma pools, which are like this majestic sort of healing waters area. And then there's a desert type area, and then there's a creepy, dark, scary one where it's literally pitch black and you have to find light sources to use. And it's such an interesting dynamic. And then to the side of that, there's these other things going on, like I mentioned, where you can actually collect these special ores and you can fix up this little society's place, because there's locals here and they're looking to you for help as you battle along and try to save this land. I think this is a really worthy follow-up to the first game. They've done a really good job on this one. It's got a great story, a really interesting set of characters. It's got unique battles. It's got aspects that feel familiar, but yet greatly evolved. They've done a great job enhancing and improving the mechanics of the game. I love that they still have this element of you learning and kind of getting at different elements and being taught how to use them every step of the way, but you get those initial skills that if you played the first one, you're going to be like, oh, I really missed this. You get them quite fast, and you're able to get back into it, and then also enjoy all of these new abilities that make traversal more interesting, more dynamic. They really have done a lot of great things in regards to improving the experience, changing your abilities, enhancing what you're able to do as a character and how you're able to interact and complete challenges in this. And I think there's going to be a lot of surprises for people that played that first Ori game, Ori and the Blind Forest, and they're coming into the Will of the Wisps looking for something that was an improvement, not only in terms of the visuals, but just the mechanics and the style and the platforming. It's just an absolutely beautiful game. It's touching. I just kind of wanted to end it with a few of the opening kind of moments, just so you get an idea of like the atmosphere and the beauty that this game just kind of sends you off into once you get going. It really does sort of feel like a bit of a Disney movie, honestly. It's just an absolutely breathtaking experience. You know, as soon as everything's all patched up and good to go, which apparently has been noted for launch, I think this is going to be one of the perhaps defining titles on the Xbox One, and definitely a very well done follow-up to the first game.